All right, let me tell you what happened. So, the Hendersons are my neighbors. We've lived next door to each other for years, and they've always been really nice to me. They're like extended family. I've helped them out with stuff over the years, like shoveling their driveway in the winter, fixing their fence once, and even babysitting their dog before he passed away. So when they asked me to house sit for them while they were away for a week, I didn't think twice. They needed someone to feed their cat, water the plants, and check the mail, and I was happy to help. Plus, I was between jobs at the time, so staying in their big, spacious house for a week sounded like a great idea. They offered me some money for it, and I could really use a change of scenery. I had just moved out of my parents' place into a tiny apartment, so the idea of spending a week in a fully stocked house with Netflix, air conditioning, and a hot tub was like a mini vacation for me. They left early one Sunday morning. Their house is at the end of a cul-de-sac, with woods on one side and a long, sloping hill on the other. It's always felt kind of secluded, which used to seem charming and peaceful to me. I waved goodbye as they drove off, and by noon, I had unpacked my stuff, stocked the fridge with snacks, and settled into their huge couch. The first night passed without any problems. I watched some crime documentaries, played with their cat, Nibbles, and made myself some pasta. I went to bed around midnight, feeling more relaxed than I had in weeks, but that calm didn't last. The second night, around 2:15 in the morning, I woke up, not sure why at first. The house was still and quiet, except for the faint hum of the fridge downstairs and the occasional creak of old wood settling. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, about to roll over and go back to sleep when I heard it. A soft, intermittent scratching sound. It was subtle, like someone dragging fingernails along drywall. I sat up, my heart rate quickening. Maybe it was Nibbles? I grabbed my phone and used the flashlight to check. I found her fast asleep at the foot of the bed, curled into a little ball. The scratching sound came again. It wasn't loud, but it was persistent. I followed the sound to the hallway, stepping carefully so I wouldn't wake the cat. The noise grew slightly louder as I approached the second-floor corridor just outside the guest bedroom. The wall across from the linen closet seemed off. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. The hallway was painted as soft, off-white like the rest of the house, but this portion of the wall had a slightly different sheen, like it had been painted more recently. The air felt colder here too. I reached out and touched the surface. It was hollow. I ran my hand along the wall until I found it, a faint vertical seam, almost invisible. There was a tiny indentation at about waist height, like a hidden latch or button. I pressed on it, half expecting it to do nothing. Instead, it clicked. A section of the wall swung inward, revealing a narrow passageway behind it. No lights, just a yawning darkness that stretched into what looked like unfinished basement wall. I didn't go in. Not that night. I was freaked out enough just discovering it. I closed the door, or panel, or whatever it was, and backed away. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, but I still felt the weight of that hidden door pressing on my mind. The house felt different somehow, like it was watching me, waiting. I kept telling myself it was just my imagination running wild. After all, the Hendersons were normal people. They wouldn't keep a secret passage in their walls, would they? I decided to focus on the tasks they had left me. Feeding Nibbles, watering the plants, collecting the mail. Keeping busy was the only way to keep the creeping dread at bay. But even as I did chores, my eyes kept drifting toward the hallway where the hidden door was. Later that afternoon, curiosity got the better of me. I told myself I would only look for a moment, just to see what was down there. Maybe some old storage space. A forgotten crawl space. I grabbed a flashlight and headed to the hallway. My hands trembled as I pressed the latch and pulled the door open again. The stairwell was narrower than I expected, the air stale and damp. I took a deep breath and began my descent. The stairs creaked beneath my weight, echoing in the confined space. My flashlight barely cut through the darkness. At the bottom, I found a small room with rough stone walls and an uneven dirt floor. It looked like a cellar, but there was something else, something more. Against one wall, old shelves held jars filled with strange objects I couldn't identify. Twisted roots, brittle bones, yellowed papers covered in cryptic symbols. A thick layer of dust covered everything, untouched for who knows how long. My heart pounded. This was no ordinary storage room. On the table in the center, I found a leather-bound journal. The cover was cracked, but the pages inside were surprisingly well preserved. I flipped it open and began to read. The journal belonged to someone named Eleanor Henderson, the matriarch of the family. Her entries started innocently enough, recounting daily life and chores. But as I read on, the tone darkened. Eleanor wrote about strange noises in the house at night, shadows that moved just beyond her vision, voices whispering in the walls. She spoke of rituals, secret meetings, and warnings from ancestors to guard the house from the watchers. My skin crawled. I knew I should stop, but I couldn't. The last entry was the most chilling. Eleanor wrote about a presence living in the hidden room beneath the house. She called it a guardian, a dark force that demanded silence and obedience. She warned anyone who found the door not to enter, or they would face terrible consequences. I snapped the journal shut, my hands shaking. Suddenly, the cellar door slammed shut above me, plunging me into darkness. Panic seized me. I scrambled toward where the door should be, banging and shouting, but there was no answer. The narrow room echoed my voice back at me like a taunt. I fumbled for my phone to call for help, but the screen remained blank, no signal, no light. I was trapped. I sat down heavily, trying to steady my breathing. The cold air seemed to close in around me. Then I heard it, a faint scratching noise, the same as the night before but closer, more urgent. The light from my flashlight flickered and dimmed. I felt eyes on me, unseen and unblinking. I tried to stand, but a sudden chill wrapped around my ankles like icy fingers. The hairs on my neck stood up. A whisper echoed from the shadows. "Leave, now." I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The voice came again, louder this time, filled with anger and sorrow. "Leave, or suffer." I closed my eyes and prayed. When I opened them again, the flashlight was dead, the room pitch black. I sat frozen in the dark, listening to the silence that followed. Minutes, or was it hours, passed before the cellar door finally creaked open. I stumbled up the stairs into the hallway, gasping for fresh air. The house felt different, colder somehow. I swore I saw a shadow flicker past the doorway to the cellar, but when I looked, there was nothing there. For the rest of the week, I avoided the hallway, avoided the door. But at night, I could still hear faint scratching, whispering from the walls. I left as soon as the Hendersons returned, my hands shaking as I handed back the keys. I haven't told a soul what I found down there, but sometimes, when I'm alone, I swear I still hear the scratching beneath my own walls. Days after returning the keys, I found myself unable to shake the feeling that something had followed me home. My apartment, once a place of refuge, now felt claustrophobic and cold. I kept hearing faint noises, scratches on the walls, soft whispers in the dead of night. I convinced myself it was just stress, or maybe the old building settling. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. One evening, unable to bear the silence, I decided to investigate. I sat in my living room with a notebook, trying to write down everything I remembered from the journal in the cellar. The strange symbols, the warnings about the guardian, the stories of shadows that moved on their own. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The air grew icy. The hairs on my arms stood on end. From the corner of my eye, I saw a dark figure retreating into the hallway. I froze. The shadows seemed to grow, reaching toward me like long fingers. A voice whispered in my ear, so close I could feel its breath. "Return, or suffer." I grabbed my coat and fled the apartment, heart pounding. I spent the rest of the night driving aimlessly, unsure of where to go or what to do. Over the next few days, I tried to contact the Hendersons. I needed answers. Had they known about the secret cellar? The dark presence? But my calls went unanswered. Their house was empty, the lawn overgrown, mail piling up. Desperate, I visited the local library to dig into the town's history. I found old newspapers and records mentioning the Henderson family. There were stories of strange disappearances, sudden deaths, and rumors of occult practices dating back over 100 years. One article caught my eye, a report of a young woman who vanished from the house in the early 1900s. The family said she had run away, but locals whispered she had been taken by something dark, something that lived in the woods and beneath the house. I felt the walls close in as I read. The house was more than just a home. It was a trap, a prison for something evil. That night, my nightmares worsened. I saw the shadow again, closer this time, its eyes glowing red in the darkness. It reached out with skeletal hands, promising pain and silence. I knew then I had to face it. I spent days preparing, reading everything I could find about the occult, protection rituals, and ways to banish dark spirits. I wasn't sure if any of it would help, but I had to try. I couldn't live in fear anymore. One night, I returned to the Henderson house. The place was eerie in the moonlight, shadows stretching like claws across the lawn. The door creaked open as if it had been waiting for me. Inside, the air was thick and cold. I found the hidden door again and descended into the cellar, armed with a flashlight and the journal. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint sound of scratching from the walls. I called out, I'm not afraid. Show yourself." The darkness shifted, and the shadow appeared. It was more terrifying than I remembered, tall, gaunt, with eyes that burned like embers. It whispered, "You should have left." I held up a small talisman I'd made from salt and herbs. The shadow recoiled, screeching in pain. "You cannot banish me," it hissed. "This house is my prison, and you are my key." I realized then that whatever this thing was, it was bound to the house but needed someone to set it free. The shadow lunged, but I threw the talisman at it. A burst of light filled the cellar, and the creature screamed as it dissolved into smoke. The scratching stopped, but just as I thought it was over, the door slammed shut behind me. I was trapped again. The air grew heavier, and a voice spoke from the darkness, Eleanor's voice. "Thank you for freeing me," it said softly. "But the curse remains. You must leave before it consumes you." I scrambled up the stairs, the cellar door finally opening on its own. I ran outside. Gasping for as I reached my car. I looked back. The house was silent, but I knew it was watching. I never returned. The Henderson house remains empty to this day, a dark secret hidden behind a simple door in the wall. Back at my apartment, I tried to convince myself that everything was over. The shadow was gone, the curse broken, but peace was fleeting. Night after night, I was haunted by vivid dreams. In them, I walked the dark halls of the Henderson house, hearing Eleanor's voice whisper warnings I couldn't quite understand. One night, I woke up to a strange sound, a faint tapping on my bedroom window. I hesitated before looking, but when I finally did, there was nothing but darkness outside. The tapping came again, louder, more insistent. It felt like a warning, or perhaps a threat. I closed the curtains and tried to sleep, but a chill lingered in the air. The house felt alive with unseen eyes. Desperate for answers, I reached out to a local historian who specialized in paranormal phenomena. When I told her about the Henderson house and the shadow, her expression grew grave. "That house has a dark history," she said. "The Henderson family was involved in rituals that went beyond this world. Their guardian was not meant to protect, but to trap something far worse." She handed me an old book filled with ancient symbols and incantations. "If you want to be free of this, you'll need to perform a cleansing ritual. But be warned, the darkness will fight back." I thanked her and left, clutching the book like a lifeline. That night, armed with the book and a handful of candles, I prepared to perform the ritual in my apartment. The instructions were cryptic, but I followed them as best I could, drawing symbols on the floor and chanting words I barely understood. As I finished, the temperature dropped sharply. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting and writhing. Then the tapping started again, this time all around me, like invisible fingers drumming on every surface. A voice echoed in the room, cold and mocking. "You cannot escape." I held my ground, chanting louder, feeling a strange energy building inside me. The shadow screamed, then suddenly vanished. The room grew warm again. Exhausted, I collapsed to the floor, hoping this was the end. For a few days, silence. No tapping, no whispers, no shadows. I dared to believe I was free, but then, one morning, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a single, yellowed page torn from a book. Written in shaky handwriting were the words, "The door is never truly closed." Fear gripped me. Had I only delayed the inevitable? Was the darkness still watching, waiting for the right moment to return? I realized that some secrets, once uncovered, can never be buried again.